Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the May 5th, 2021 evening meeting for the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we please establish a quorum?
Hi. Ms. Beatwood?
Here.
Mr. Hoff? Mr. Canali?
Here.
Mr. Walters?
Here.
Ms. Kirkner? Mr. Lester?
Here.
Mr. Gosnell? Commissioner Lance?
Control room, you may want to mute. No problem.
Secretary Eisenberg?
Here.
Ms. Chair? Sorry.
Okay, I think we've established we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Four
Thank
members
you.
are present.
Thank you. I'll move on now to our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On to our agenda. Are there any changes?
There are no changes to this evening's agenda. It's as written.
This is Jeff. I move approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move on now to our administrative report. Secretary Eisenberg.
I don't really have anything to report this evening other than Commissioner Wance will be late and he may not be able to attend at all this evening. He has a conflict, as well as Mr. Huff is unable to attend this evening's meeting as well.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
I just received a email from Mr. Gosnell saying he's having internet issues. He's trying to log in. He'll be here shortly, he hopes.
Good. We'll still
Thank
be
you.
here. Okay, moving on to item number 6, the Freedom Area Sewer Interests Survey.
Yeah, so I just wanted to put this on the agenda this evening just to make you all aware of something that the Department of Planning has been working on. And this came at a discussion and request from the Freedom District Community Association. There was a member in particular of the group who felt very strongly about this. And after having some discussions, we feel it's a worthwhile endeavor just to do a very high level preliminary survey of interest for those in the Freedom District that are not currently on water and sewer to have the potential to hook up. And what this stems from is when the Freedom area was developed, many homes were developed before infrastructure was in place. We did not have municipal water and sewer. And so we had some smaller lots of half acre and in some instances a quarter acre developed that were not on water and sewer. As the county put in the infrastructure, the water and sewer, there was not an effort at the time to retroactively then convert these properties from well and septic on these small lots to water and sewer. Instead, we did new development. As new development came through, it was developer driven. The developer would expand the lines and serve the communities in which they were constructing. So we do have a lot of homes that are in the water and sewer service long range beyond the 10 years that are on well and septic. And if you recall from the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan, we made a very conscious decision to move those from priority to long range. And the reason for that is that the county does not have the funding in its budget to extend lines to those communities. The health department has no issues that have been reported to them on any of the properties in a system-wide area. Maybe there's been a few failing here and there, but we've worked with the health department. They've given us no indication that there are areas of failure. The soils, from my understanding, are very good for septics, and they do perk well on those smaller lots. So when we did the Freedom Plan, the decision was made, we're reserving this allocation for, almost 900 residential units that even in the foreseeable future, in the next 10 to 20 years, right now, the county has no plans or no CIPs for sewer lines to be extended to those communities. But we thought, given conversations we've had with FDCA members, it would be, again, a good endeavor to go ahead and move forward with a survey just to gain interest and to see for ourselves if there are any issues by asking the question in the community. So if I can share my screen, control room. Control room, can I share my screen, please? Thank you.
I think they got the
So-
chips and salsa first.
So I'm gonna take you to our website. So this is the planning department's website. And on our main carousel, we have a link to the County Freedom Area and Sewer Interest Survey. And again, the purpose was for the county to reach out to selected properties to determine interest in connecting to county public and sewer if it becomes available. We wanted to make a point too that there are no plans for county funded expansion at this time. All expansions currently are developer driven. So in this portion of the website, we have a link to actually take the survey. And I'm not gonna be able to click on the link to take the survey because the survey is done in two ways. We sent out a mailing and we sent with a password, and only one IP address can take the survey, only one time. Because we really wanted to make sure that the targeted audience was able to take the survey, not the broader public, because we really want to focus in on this area. And the measures that we were using in selecting our properties were properties that were in the Freedom area, in that long range category, that are residential and less than 2 acres. And the reason the less than 2 acre mark was selected, because right now the sweet spot for most properties moving forward that are built on septic, the health department recommends 2 acres. Unless there's really great soils, you can probably do 1 acre, but they want at least 1 to 2 reserve areas for your drain fields. So that way you have enough room on 2 acres. Should you have a failing system and you have to put a new drain field in, you have that room to put an additional system in. So we also looked at homes built before 1990, looking at that 30-year time frame. On average, a septic system will last about 20 years. Some last a lot longer. I know instances where septics have been totally fine for 30, 40 years because they have really good draining soils. The property owner has not had a lot of people use the system. Maybe it's a 1 or 2 person household. So there's a lot of variables that go into how long a system works and works well for. So we put on here the benefits and costs of residential septic versus county sewer. We worked with our Public Works Department and information from the Bay Restoration Program to put some average fees. Again, these are very general. None of these fees, I would say, it's very property specific. So that's what we said: initial installation or replacement between $5,000 and $50,000, depending if you could do a conventional septic system or if you have to do a mound system, and that could be constrained by your property itself, how well your soils drain, how large it is, etc. Annual maintenance. Some people get their septic pumped annually. Some people don't do anything, so that's why the range is from $100 to $1,000. Bay restoration fee is a set fee. It's $60 a year, and you pay it through your property taxes. And then the quarterly billing, you're not getting billed. That's something that you maintain yourself. Then we put down the cost of the county sewer, and average would be between $10,000 and $15,000, depending on. We make the homeowner pay from the house to the force main of the system. we provide it coming down the road, so to speak. And then once our sewer goes in front of your home, you have to connect, but you're responsible from your home to that connection. And that just depends. There's so many variables there. Area connection charge is a one-time fee of $8,400. You are billed in that for your bay restoration, $60 per year, or $5 per month. That's included in your quarterly bill from your provider. This being the Freedom area or the county provider, not one of the municipalities. And a typical average single family home in this area's quarterly billing is around 127, but that can vary depending on how much you use or don't use. So again, these are, I want to caution, very, very general numbers. So then we also prepared a map of the area that the surveys went to. So if you can see on my screen, all of the purple areas represent those residential properties that are residentially improved 2 acres or less and built before 1990. And there's 860 of them. So again, that's who we were targeting in our survey. And these are all the ones that are in long range. Now, I won't say all of them moved from priority to long range, but a lot of them did move from priority to long range. Again, as I said, when we made that decision during the Freedom planning process. So now I'm going to show you the survey, and I apologize, it's triplicate across your screen, but that's how we had to do it for the mailing. So what we did was a like 3-inch by 8-inch cardstock paper survey that went directly to these property owners. And they can either mail this, and we gave them self-addressed envelopes to mail back this survey to us, or they could participate with the passcode that is seen here on your screen. And we also gave them a link to the survey itself. And we kept it very high level and asked very general questions. We wanted to know if this was their primary residence or not. And this came about because when we've done a sanitary sewer survey, which is one step more in depth than this, it's conducted either by the health department or a consulting firm would do this typically for the county. That's not something we have the expertise to do in planning. So we would consult this out if we take this to the next level, is because sometimes it's a hard time grasping the answers if someone's a renter. So we sent this to property owners, and we wanted to make sure that we were getting the property owner's take, not a renter's take. And if they do rent, sometimes when you have a rental property, you may be more or less apt to maintain the system properly. Wanted to know how many people occupy the dwelling. If it's 1 or 2 people, that might have less use. Or if it's more than 4 people, that system on a small lot is sized smaller and may have more issues come up. Knowing if the septic has been replaced or not, that was important for us to know. And if it was replaced, about how many years ago was it replaced? And to know if they've ever had any septic issues. And if it became available, would they be interested in connecting? And if they weren't, why were they not interested in participating? And then, you know, we put stickers where their name and property addresses because we were trying to, again, target these people, and we're keeping track of each survey has a unique identifier, so we know who's responded. And we can also look on a map too when this is all done to see maybe there is a pattern that shows an area that has issues or an area that people really want to be on sewer, so that can help drive decisions. And then the reason for the annual estimated income and the reason we kept it in broad range is because we wanted to see how much of a hardship this would be. I mean, if we're dealing with properties, again, where people are between that $25,000 and $50,000 mark, and then we're bringing in a sewer system and we're asking them to spend $25,000, let's just say, to hook up and do all the stuff that you need to do, then that really can put it, it's a burden. So maybe we need to structure payment arrangements or things like that. The Bay Restoration Program is a program offered by the state of Maryland that can help offer some relief. Each jurisdiction in the state is allocated a certain amount of money to be put toward efforts for restorative measures for the Bay, which could be upgrading your septic from a regular conventional to a best available technology type system. It can go to jurisdictions for doing sewer and water plant upgrades. It can be for offsetting your national pollution discharge permits by planting trees or doing other things. So it's a very broad program. And I think annually Carroll gets between 6 and 7 million allocated. That seems like a lot of money, but let's just say we were to go ahead and look at upgrading our plant and we were going to the Bay Restoration Funds. 6 or 7 million won't get you a lot of money toward doing that. It'll get you some, and it definitely helps, but not enough to cover the cost of a plant upgrade. It would not cover the cost of the county extending those lines, and it would help lessen the burden for homeowners, but may not fully pay for the cost of the turnover. So these are just all the things, you know, that need to be taken into consideration if a time comes where the county wants to move to this next level. So that's what we've been working on so far. I haven't checked this evening. The surveys went out on Friday, April 30th to these properties, and we started getting responses on Monday. So far we've had about 25 responses, and actually the responses have been very positive, wanting to actually go on sewer. The ones that don't cite cost and having a quarterly bill that they have to pay. So with that, are there any questions? Okay.
Lynn, I have a question on this. I'll just simply say, I think the survey is terrific. I think this is a great way to approach this because of the concerns that have been voiced to FDCA. I know you've heard them, and this is a great response by you and your team. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that.
And Linda, just so I understand, most of the areas that you show that are in long range did not have sewer lines that go down, basically down those streets.
There's no infrastructure there. There are no lines.
Right. So if somebody at this point said they're in the long range and they want to go to the sewer, then it would then be on to the county though to extend the line into those communities, or would they be expected? Okay.
It would be the county at that point in time, because there's no developer. So typically one in communities, but the developer would put all the infrastructure in, and then you would pay for it as part of the cost of your home. Retroactively doing it like this is the county then would have to have a CIP, a capital improvement project, to put the lines in that particular area. The homeowner's responsibility is from their home to the line.
Okay.
Now, again, depending on what happens, hardships, I mean, there's just so many different variables that could be worked out that, you know, there's area connection charges, you know, could those or could those not be waived depending on what we're asking people to do. I mean, our water and sewer system is an enterprise fund and they're self-sustaining. So it's the system divided by the amount of users help pay for its maintenance, upkeep, and paying off the construction, the cost of developing that system. And so that's how our rate structure is based. So again, a lot of variables, and depending on when in the future this would be done, because it's not only putting the system in and then doing all the repair work to the roads and things like that afterwards. I mean, you know, Cynthia, it's the engineering, the design, the construction, the everything.
Yeah, but I think, like Peter said, this is a great thing to judge more than, you know, just hearing from one or two people, because also, you know, the CIP comes to us every year. So if this is something that we find that the community is really like, hey, overwhelmingly they want to start hooking up, then maybe it's something we start recommending like we did for the road systems.
Absolutely. No, that's a great idea. And I think also having this spatially will help be able to determine areas maybe of concentration of desire or non-desire or issues that we were unaware of because no one wanted to say anything. You know, it is tricky because if you're having major issues, you don't want the government or the health department coming and you want to try to fix it yourself, but sometimes it's too much that you can't handle and you do need to go to the health department or to others. You know, we don't want to be Big Brother. We don't want to be watching over people's shoulders, but we also want to make the right decisions for the community in a holistic way. And in the Freedom Plan, even though I said we reallocated, we did reserve 20% to offset if we did have systemic failure and we did have a project we wanted to put a whole area on. The plant has the capacity, the physical ability to service everything. What we are limited by the county are two things. The state of Maryland, because they have a set allocation that they've taken for themselves for the Springfield complex, and that's fine. And our plant is run by MES. When I say it's under the county control, yes and no. The plant is run by Maryland Environmental Systems, and that's like a quasi public-private group. And it's limited by our permit, our discharge permit. So we're capped at a certain amount. So even though the plant may be able to serve much more capacity, we're limited by the nutrient and discharge cap set by the state. Now, again, not to get too technical, but if we start converting septic into sewer, we start reaching that cap quicker, but there's also credits and offsets you can get because we are converting. So again, all of that would have to be worked out if we go to the next levels in the years to come.
Linda, I'd like to compliment you also. It's a great report. It begs so many questions. I don't want to get bogged down on it, but I'm sitting here thinking of the worst case scenario where I'm on a lot, the septic fails, and there's no line coming down the street. What options do I have, and would I get help? I mean, the only option I could see there is doing an above ground septic system.
That's exactly it. You could do a holding tank. Say your property can't perk, you can't, put another typical system, a conventional system. You could do a holding tank, and people do that, and then you have it pumped out like once a month or however much you use it. Basically it's like a glorified like just tank of effluent. The other thing you can do is a mound system, which works well on small parcels. And it's just as it sounds, it's a mounded system where it has different gradients of sand and soil to help with the drainage and absorb the nutrients outside of the septic tank. Because the septic tank is just one thing that holds the solids. It's the liquids that go into the drain field. And again, I'm not pretend to be an expert on this. I know enough to probably be very dangerous right now, but that's how some of the systems work. So on smaller properties. Also, typically, let's just say we have an area of failure. Maybe there's 10 homes and it's not enough to warrant a whole sewer system because the cost versus the benefit is very small. A lot of times you would give water, you would send water to that area. Because ideally what you're trying to do is have potable drinking water. You don't want the septic to contaminate the well. And so you would extend your water system to those areas. And it's a lot less expensive and you're not gravity determined, it's pressure. And that's another issue with septic, depending on sewer, where it's located. I mean, pump stations, if you're going against gravity, pump stations, all of that infrastructure is very costly. And that would fall 100% on the county. And not that it shouldn't, but that's just the reality of the situation.
Linda, something occurs to me here. Now, I don't know, again, this is a rabbit hole and we don't have to go there tonight, but I think it would be helpful to have something, whether it's a 1-page, 2-page, I don't know how many pages it would be, but something that would be a resource for someone. If they had a sewer system fail, this is what you can do. Because what I'm hearing is that, I'm hearing, what I'm hearing is that we've got a lot of homes here that are, if and when they fail. And again, what I've heard is a horror story. So I can't say that they're like 6 or 10, but I've heard one horror story. And, I don't know what plans does the state have an assistance fund that you can go to? I mean, I don't know who you could call or where we would send them. So I don't know that we,
Sure.
Let's do
So
this
that's out
tonight.
of my lane, Pete. I'm going to be honest. That's out of planning's lane. However, I would say the health department, Carroll County Health Department has all of this on their website. They have a tremendous amount of resources, and so does the BAE program. I would be willing to link to them, but I'm not comfortable doing a 1-pager on that sort of thing.
Okay,
I'm not
Lynn, that's a great answer. That is, because again, it is the health department. I mean, again, I just, again, it's not like I'm getting approached daily on this. I just think that it's something that given the ages of homes in this area, it is something we're going to see, I think, with increased frequency, right? I would think. And so, again, you're getting ahead of this. This is great. Again, I appreciate it. It's all good.
Yep, thank you so much. So that's all I have on this. And when we get the results of the survey runs from now until the end of the month, I'll compile the results and I will present them to you all, and we'll put them on our website. We'll see what the next steps are. And if this needs to go to the commissioners, we're not there yet. I've been working, not under the commissioner's direction on this. It was something I just had some conversations and some direction given. So if this is going to the next level, it really needs to be commissioner driven, I would think, at that point. And that's something I would reach out to them and present them with this information before this goes further.
Thank you. Yeah, you answered my question. I figured you were going to tell us the results, but
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, moving on to item number 7, which is our comprehensive rezoning residential text, our continued discussion of this. I take it that's for you, Mary.
Me again.
Welcome.
Could I get the ability to share my screen, please? Okay. Can you can see this, correct? Okay. Okay. Just to summarize, we left off on page 30 with the, we stopped at this bulk requirement section. We are getting close to completing our initial review, at least until we go back and you make some possible changes and take into consideration comments that you've received. So we're going to work through tonight the bulk requirements, and then we're going to jump over to the change in chapter 155 to cluster subdivisions, which we have received of everything we've done in this proposal. That has been the most talked about. Laura Matthias will at that point give you a presentation on that, but I'll start right now with the bulk requirements. As a reminder, they are defined in the zoning code as the dimensions relating to the size of structures or uses, and they include lot area, lot width, height, and yard requirements. These are on page 30 and 31 of the proposal. And I would say that the biggest change is to the formatting into a table, including all the zoning districts in one place. No real substantive changes to the actual requirements have been made, although we did standardize some of the category descriptions. These were all under each of the 4 residential districts before, and there were times, because the districts were written at different times and amended at different times, where the descriptions were a little bit different, but there's really no substantive change until we get a little bit farther. The way we did this is we looked at variance requests, what other jurisdictions do, and issues that have come up over the years. And after a lot of discussion, our group agreed that there's really no reason to make any wholesale changes. Administrative adjustments, which are basically variances, can still be made on a case-by-case basis. So again, lot area requirements, no changes there. As far as yard and lot width, the only change there, and we talked about this during the definitions, is adding corner front yard for clarity for lots that have frontage on 2 public streets. And this is separated out by zoning district, and then by use here, schools and hospitals, religious establishments, nursing homes. Again, no changes to any of these: assisted living, retirement homes, recreational, institutional, and community facilities. These, there could have been some small changes just because of the way they were defined in the different districts, but we kept with basically what they were throughout. So I can't even really point out any major changes to that. The next section, C, is exceptions to the above tables. There were no changes made regarding planned unit development. They're still subject to the provisions of 155.093. 2 is something to discuss. It is the bulk requirements in a retirement village shall be established by the Planning Commission at the time of site plan approval. the maximum allowable density in the R20 district for a retirement village shall not exceed 3.5 dwelling units per acre. And we've discussed this a little bit previously, I think, with the use table. Currently, it's not called retirement village, but attached housing is permitted up to 6 units per acre. It can be townhouse or 2-family. Because of the specific language in the Freedom Plan, especially under the land use definition for residential medium, which is R20, this has been reduced to 3.5 dwelling units per acre. And other bulk requirements, again, are determined by the Planning Commission at the time of site plan approval. I will note too, the Freedom District Citizens Association objects, I believe, both to the density being 3.5 in the R20, which is typically 2, and the allowance of attached units, even if they are age restricted. But I will point out that this is currently allowed at 6 dwelling units per acre. We also received
Mary, and it's allowed in the R20 district zoning.
correct. It's allowed in all of them. But I really should clarify one thing. It is allowed by conditional use. And we have, back in the use table, we have proposed that it be a permitted use. And I think that is one of the most contentious things right there. So I will definitely put that on your list of things to discuss when we circle back around to the different comments that have been made, because there has been the request that at the very least this be kept as a conditional use and give the community the input that provides above and beyond a site plan approval and the type of input that they can give there. So that is something that we will definitely come back to when you discuss any possible changes. You also received a letter from John McGuire regarding this. He is requesting the possibility that the flexibility be written into this for the Planning Commission to increase density above 3.5 dwelling units per acre. He supports the flexibility in lot size, but actually would like more certainty for minimum yards, and he provides some minimum yards. I think if you read his letter, you'll see more about his rationale for that. So again, when we go back and discuss the retirement village in its entirety, we could talk more about that at that time, unless you wanted to discuss it now. Okay. There are no changes to the density for nursing homes and assisted living facilities. This is in all the districts, and this 1 bed per 3,000 square feet is currently in the code, and as well as the maximum allowable density for retirement homes, which, as you'll recall, we took out of allowing them in the R40 and R20. So now they are just allowed in the R10 and R7500 with that density of 1 dwelling unit per 3,000 square feet. But again, most of the attention is being given to the R20 district, where this use would not be allowed anymore. Regarding building height, this is the same as in the current code, but the only difference is the removal of a reference to stories. Currently, the code has both height in feet as well as stories. This can often be in conflict. I don't know if Jay wants to expand on that at all. And we also did this for the commercial and industrial district several years ago. So this is consistent with the decision that was made for that. Regarding accessory structures, this is relocated from another section. There is a change here in looking at the number of variances for accessory buildings that are in rear yards. There was, and Jay can probably expand on this, a great number of them for accessory buildings. So it was agreed by the staff to propose that the rear yard requirement be reduced from 5 feet to 3 feet, so that those variances aren't constantly coming before the zoning administrator and the BZA after that. So that is regarding bulk requirements. That is really all we have that is different. Jay, did you want to expand on anything I said?
No, I think you covered it pretty good, Mary.
Okay. So are there any questions before we move to cluster? Okay. I can't really see everybody, so If there are, speak up. So the next section is cluster, and this is a separate proposal. It's only several pages. We haven't talked about it at all yet. This is the change proposed to Chapter 155. Just as a overview, cluster subdivision is used in nearly all other jurisdictions, particularly in this area, not necessarily always in the same type of districts, but it is always used or always an option for use. In Carroll, it's currently permitted in the Conservation District, the R40, the R20, and the R10,000 zoning districts. In a nutshell, it is a land development design tool that provides a means of both preserving open space and the rural character of the land, allowing development to be directed away from natural resources considered important for protection. It allows smaller lot sizes than typically permitted in the underlying zoning district and concentrates dwelling units in a selected area. It allows a portion of a site's land area to be preserved in permanent open space. It facilitates design flexibility, and it can promote recreational opportunity for the community. It also can reduce the cost to both the developer and the county of the infrastructure because less is being used, or it's not covering as much of the land. So as currently in the code, the overall yield of an individual site has to be the same as if a conventional development were occurring on that site. And although it doesn't say it in so many words, that's what number one, the change to number one would change that to, well, it would eliminate the requirement for a conventional development plan on which to compare against, but it would still require that the density could not be above what is envisioned for that zoning district. I'm not really articulating that very well. So the yield of the zoning district may not be exceeded on the development site. For example, in the R20, you still could not exceed 2 dwelling units per acre. For the first time, it establishes a minimum lot size for each of the zoning districts. And you can see there that they are in the R20,000 district, this minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet. There's no changes to any of the zoning districts where it is allowed. There's no changes to the types of dwellings that are allowed. There's no attached units. It has to be detached units. And I think that pretty well summarizes it. Really, the changes are here by eliminating the requirement for a conventional plan on which to compare. Everything else is just renumbered and remains the same regarding cluster. So what I'd like to do is Laura Mathias and her staff have worked on providing a few real world examples of how this will work and what kind of yield you'd see on properties that you're, I'm sure, very familiar with. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and if the control room could give her screen sharing, I'd appreciate it. Laura Mathias, please.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can someone give me a thumbs up or a yes? I can see the screen. We good? Thank you. Awesome. All right. Mary, I thought you did a great job. This is not not really a terribly easy thing to explain. Thankfully, my audience tonight is the Planning Commission, and you all are very familiar, I think, at this point with cluster plans of subdivision, because we do come before you right now with that conventional plan versus cluster. And there's a case made by the developer as to which way, you know, if they're presenting a cluster, they want to go the cluster route, and then they present as to why. So as we worked through these code changes, our Bureau has always consistently contended that You know, we know it's been a great matter of discussion, and we've always said this is not going to increase lot yield over what we're seeing now. And I think that's a primary concern that has been heard back from the public. So we've always kind of intuitively said that, because we're well aware that you have to you have to provide the infrastructure. You have to actually engineer the site. You have to be able to get to the lots. You have to address stormwater management, etc. So it's really not going to do that. But it was very interesting when our Bureau staff came together and all the coordinators worked on this. And we decided to do 2 case studies. And actually the results were, you know, just as revealing to us as hopefully, you know, they will be to you. So I'm going to walk you through the case studies that we did. And if you have questions, you know, do feel free to interrupt, or if you're not understanding what I'm saying or how this is laid out. So I'm going to try to see my screen a little bit more. Okay, so the text amendment for the cluster subdivisions. Let's see if it's going to let me. Okay. The first property that we used as a case study is the Mineral Hill property. This is a subdivision. It's in the final stages, so you have already seen it, and you're probably recalling it. As I go through the drawings, you'll recognize it. The property's at basically the corner of Oklahoma Road and Mineral Hill Road here. And the acreage, it's a total of 9.2 acres. The zoning here is R20,000. So again, as Mary already went over, this is the current code, how it reads. So it gets a little interesting. The property, you know, would have to be developed in conformance with its topographic characteristics and the normal minimum lot size requirement. So you typically see you will see the conventional and the cluster plan under the current code. And the conventional in this case, very much laid out in accordance with the bulk requirements, the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. And you'll see that they basically put a road right down the middle and laid out the lots, right? They do have 15 lots on this plan. At the same time, they presented to you the cluster plan, where they showed 14 lots. Okay, there's no minimum lot size as currently written in the code. So we have lots ranging from 11,683 square feet to 24,242 square feet. So now under the proposed residential text amendment, we basically end up with a formula. The total number of lots may not exceed the number that would be permitted for the zoning district based on the gross area of the parcel or the tract being subdivided. So we land on a formula under the new code of the gross area of the parcel divided by the bulk area requirements. You're just taking that property and chopping it up into however many pieces you could get, you know, dividing the numbers. That's all you're doing here. So 20,000 square feet. And it's really just running numbers. You don't even have to apply it on the ground. So what you come up with in the case of the Mineral Hill property, your zoning district is R20,000. The gross area of the parcel is 9.2 acres. Translate that to square footage and divide by the 20,000 square foot minimum lot size. And you have 20 lots. So now, as I said, you can't lay down 20 lots on this property without providing the engineering, the infrastructure. So that's what we looked at next. In the case of the 14 lots, so we pulled out the engineering elements using their cluster plan, the existing cluster plan. So we have the acreage of the roads, 0.56. We have their stormwater management parcel, 0.87 acres. Road dedication, 0.26. And in the end, when we subtract out the acreages, we come up with 7.51 acres that would remain for lots and required open space. So again, we're just using this as a comparative, a case scenario. What can you now do with the remaining acreage, the 7.5? So then under the residential text amendment being proposed, we now have minimum lot size requirements. With those individual lots in the R20,000 district, we're looking at 10,000 square foot is the minimum lot size. And then the open space requirements are not changing. So the land derived from the reduction of the lot size shall be provided as open space. So now we take that 7.51 acres and we're going to say, well, they're going for the best case scenario, 10,000 square foot lots. Well, the reduction of lot size equals that. It's the other 10,000 square foot. So take the acreage, divide that in half for open space, half for lots. So you have 3.75 acres for your lots. With 3.75 acres, it calculates out to 16 lots. So as stated at the beginning, this plan actually, it showed 15 on the conventional, 14 on the cluster. And of course, with the case scenario, we were using the cluster plan infrastructure. The cluster plan for 14 lots, we were using that road acreage, that stormwater management parcel, which there may be a slight increase if you're looking to increase the lots. So all in all, it comes out around the same number of lots. Okay, does that make sense? Right. We have one more case study, actually one more slide in there regarding kind of what was most revealing. I kind of just summarized what we found most enlightening about doing this particular case study was that the open space actually provided under this plan, the required is 1.2 acres. Because again, we're still like in the current case scenario, you're still talking about the difference, right? With the lot sizes, the difference in the reduction from the 20,000 to whatever they reduce it to. The plan does provide a 2.1 acre open space, but if you maximized your lot areas to use that 10,000 square feet to get the most lots, in this case scenario, you would end up with a 3.75 acre open space parcel. Again, it all comes down to engineering it. There's not one way to engineer anything. So, but we did find that that was a big difference in this case. Okay. Any questions before I move on to the next case study? Okay. So the next property we've used is the Hobie Wolf property. This is currently in plan review, but you have not seen it yet. It has not come before the Planning Commission. So you're getting a little glimpse into the future here. But so the property itself, we are located, I'm sure everybody knows where this is. So here's Oklahoma Road, running north-south, and Bennett Road. Okay. It's the rather large parcel, 71.4 acres on the west side of Oklahoma Road here. Okay. So again, just the current code, how it reads. And what they have submitted, as I said, you haven't seen this yet. Yes. Okay. I thought I heard someone piping in there. So the conventional plan that they showed is 103 lots. Okay. I'm going to go back for 1 second here so you can see that ortho again. You'll see that this property has a stream basically bisecting it. Okay. So through the center here, that's where the stream is. So their conventional plan, of course, they're not in the stream. They're not showing lots in the stream, right? They have to move away from all the environmentally sensitive areas here. So the conventional plan, 103, and their cluster plan.
Laura, can I just
Yes.
ask one question there? So
Sure.
with the stream, so
Mhm.
when they go to calculate how many lots they can have, we have requirements how far the lots have to be away from the environmentally sensitive areas, but they do not have to remove those environmentally sensitive areas from their overall lot size. I mean, their overall, like the 71 acres.
Gross area, correct.
Yes,
So
okay.
under the new code, correct, you'll see, I'll go through the calculations. You're totally correct because you're just doing a formula. Exactly. You're taking the overall acreage and you're dividing it. So
But that's
this-
true now too, correct? They don't have to remove that area around the stream.
They actually do, because as the code
Okay.
reads, it has to be developed in conformance with its topographic characteristics.
Right,
And then,
right.
right. So because if you have steep slopes or streams, or that's where the conventional plan, this is their conventional plan. This is trying to max out 20,000 square foot lots on this property. Okay.
Mhm.
So they did not utilize all that area with the steep slopes and the streams was not used. Okay. So this was the best that they could get out of it was the 103.
Okay.
Okay. So they still, they have 103 on their cluster plan. So I'm going to go through that same step by step. We have to look at the design elements, but you're right. We're taking the gross area and dividing it by the bulk requirements. So here's how that looks for Hobie Wolf. We're in the R 20,000 zoning district, 71.4 acres. Translate that to square footage and divide by the 20,000 square foot minimum lot size. And you're at 155. Okay. So as long as they can engineer it with 155 lots, they could potentially get 155 lots, right? So now we get to the engineering. So we used their existing cluster plan. We took out the roads, 6.6 acres. The stormwater management parcels, which in this case, the last case scenario, it was a single stormwater management parcel. This case, multiple parcels throughout the property to address stormwater. Again, there's no one way to slice the apple, right? When you engineer it, the engineer is figuring out how to do that to the best of their ability. And we take out the road dedication along Oklahoma, 2.0909 acres. And in this case, the environmental areas. So we pulled from their plan all the areas where they didn't have on their conventional plan any lots. That's what the purple area is, okay? So the environmental areas on this property were 9.62 acres. So from the 74 acres, on this case scenario, when the actual, the engineering elements were actually taken out, there were 44.65 acres left to work with. Okay. So again, we're looking at the calculation here. Half of that is going, if we're considering the 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, half of that is going towards the lots. The other half is going towards open space, the reduction of the lot size, the other 10,000 square feet. So we have 44.65 acres divided in half. We have 22.3 for lots, 22.3 for required open space. That 22.3, if we translate it to square feet, divided by their minimum lot size, 97 lots is where we are now. So the engineering, and in this case scenario, especially the environmentally sensitive areas that can't be built, makes a significant difference. We're still, I would say, we're in range of the 103. It's it's not a big difference. But again, the most revealing thing here for us was, or just interesting, I will say, under the proposed text amendment, there is a minimum lot size. Under the current code, there is not. So the cluster plan, in this case, the smallest lot size is 9,068 square feet, significantly under the 10,000. And then the largest lots are 27,000. So of course, with the new code, it's not precluding anybody from going larger. It's just saying the minimum would be 50% of what would typically be the bulk requirement in that zoning district. Okay. That's it. We only did 2 case studies. I think it's enough, but we tried to pick, 2 different sizes, both hopefully, you're familiar with the properties, if not the plans that have already been submitted, and just walk through how that actually plays out on paper, compared to what we have intuitively thought consistently was that we're going to land in about the same place. So
I guess where I'm hung up is, what's the right basis for a developer to use when they bring forward a plan, Laura? Because, there are parcels with wetlands and slopes and they can't be developed. They could never be developed. And I'm not so sure it's right to use that as part, it's not usable, so you're buying usable land, not the unusable. And so that's kind of where I'm hung up on some of the gymnastics of this. Do you think we're treating that fairly or correctly?
I think it ends up that they're not developable anyways, if you're following. Like, the Hobie Whoop was really pretty enlightening to me that it landed at a number that was below what they actually are putting on the property right now. So in one's head, you say, well, you're using all that acreage, even though you can't build it. But then what actually happens is, because you can't build those areas and because you have to include all the other infrastructure anyways, you're not able to fit that maximum number of lots that you might have yielded per the simple calculation.
And
right?
if I could just add to that too, Pete, for you as well, when we've done our various plans, the master plan and the freedom plan, if a property is majority conservation type land, steep slopes, forests, streams, we wouldn't have designated it R40, R20, R7500, R10 anyway, and it wouldn't be zoned that way. Do some properties have environmental features that are zoned that way? Absolutely. But I would say that's less than half of the acreage have those features on it. So you're not going to be developing. Those areas are zone conservation and ag, and land use designations are conservation and ag. There's only a handful of properties that have the R20 designation that have developable potential. We have no R10,000 and we have no R7500 developable in the county currently. We just don't. So you're really talking about the bulk of the R20, and we're really talking about, as you are fully aware, the couple of properties in the Freedom area. We have nothing in the Westminster because we don't have water and sewer, none of the other municipalities. So it's just those few properties that would succumb to the new provisions and the current provisions as they stand now. And I just want to thank Laura and her team. Outstanding job. I think you did an amazing job articulating what we could not do as eloquently because of your expertise in reviewing developments. And I think this was really, really helpful in my mind to show that visual of what this means moving forward.
Thanks, Linda. So, and again, this, you won't be seeing both plans. If this goes into the code, you won't have that conventional cluster, you have to make a determination. It would be, proposed. If they propose a cluster plan, they would get that calculation and then move forward from there.
Yeah, but since I've been on the board, I can't remember a time where we've received both, and the cluster has always.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
It's also interesting if you think about it from, we typically receive one sheet with a conventional plan set. It's, the engineer has to really balance how much time and energy do I need to put into a conventional plan in order to prove that that is my lot yield, in order to bring both before you as well. So I think it is advantageous across the board. If this makes sense, it is absolutely advantageous to go that route.
And not that this should be the only reason to move, if this were to move forward but it streamlines things for everyone and makes a much more efficient process. So that's one thing, we're always getting, I think someone at one of our last meetings was talking about what inefficiencies could we improve in government. Here's one of the inefficiencies that can be improved in government, is just streamlining this process.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions tonight? Thank you, Laura. It seems also that we would get much larger open space.
I think there's potential for that as well. So.
Yeah, and Cynthia, that's we heard from somebody last week. I forget the last time we met. I forget who it was. Who was a citizen during the public comment section. And his comment is you end up with open space that the community has to maintain, and there's nothing there. It's not like they put in a playground. It's not like they put in a tennis courts or something like that. It's just an open field that the community now has to mow, and it's an HOA fee that they really didn't want, and there's really no benefit to it. It's not like there's a path around it or anything. It's just an open field that's not very well grassed, and so I agree with you. I mean, I think conservation is great. I think having green spaces is terrific. Tree saves, I'm all about it, right? But I in the essence of having this is great. It gives us open spaces. It also gives us something that we have to maintain, and if we can't maintain it well, what was the reason for it? So again, those are questions that I'm hearing locally, and I think we heard that last week.
Absolutely, Pete, we did hear that. And I would say that these are newer developments. People know going in that they have an HOA. They know what that open space. So if they don't like that type of product, they don't have to buy there. So it's not like we're forcing that. That's free choice. And the market is driving that as well, that there is a market for that. People are buying those homes. They sell. And I think, yes, would more amenities be nice? Absolutely. And I'm not trying to defend the development side, but I'll just say those amenities cost a lot of money. And when you're talking 15, 25 on average sized communities, that's not a lot of houses to support those types of pools, tennis courts. And then imagine if they were, what your HOA fees would be. Look how it is to maintain our parks. So I do understand that point, and that is very nice. But people know going in, that you're buying into an HOA, what your open space is, what that's going to look like. If you wanted something more, maybe that's not the community you choose for yourself. And we don't pay for it. It's not county dollars. We don't pay to maintain that. That HOA pays to maintain that.
Yeah. And as Linda pointed out earlier, there aren't that many residentially zoned that have a lot of these steep slopes, streams, etc. But in the case that there are, we didn't go through the remainder of this code section, but it does give provisions for that open space. One of them, you can put up to 50% of the required open space in steep slopes, streams, ponds, watercourses, floodplain. So that is not, if you have that case scenario, which Hobie Wolf will, they don't have to actively, you're not mowing the stream. So you don't have to actively maintain some of the areas of that. So
Thank you. Any other
All right.
questions or? Okay, lot to. So I'll move along to our item number 8, our residential text, our public outreach strategies.
Actually,
Linda?
before I move on, was there anything else, Mary and Brenda, that we wanted to get through on this residential text this evening?
Not this evening, but at the business meeting on the 18th, Brenda and Jay will be finishing up the discussion of the zoning administration issues. So they will complete on that day the proposal that you had before you, and then we will go back after that and bring back to you all the issues that either you've expressed interest in taking another look at, or we've gotten a lot of comments on and moved through it that way. But you'll have the base that we have moved, I think, pretty methodically through this draft. So you'll be familiar with everything at that point.
And so then after that, Mary, that's pretty much it. And then after that meeting, then I'll talk about the public participation and what I'd like to propose to Planning Commission moving forward, just to continue our engagement with the public. So if I could just share my screen, please, control room. All right, so with that being said, we are coming down the final stretch. This has been years and years in the making, from the master plan and the freedom plan process to working through the commercial, industrial, employment campus districts. We're kind of nearing the end, at least, of your initial review of the residential district. So I just want to offer up perhaps a continued public discussion prior to forwarding this to the Board of County Commissioners. So just to let you know about the public input to date and to refresh your memory, since we've been working on this residential component in 2018, we were able to have 2 in-person focus group meetings. And when we submitted our draft to you as the concept team's draft, many of the comments and changes were actually incorporated in the draft you saw. So we did have a lot of those considerations put forward to you. We also hosted 3 webinars in the fall of last year. Again, with COVID and things like that, we couldn't continue that in-person focus group that we were trying to work on, but we instead took the webinar approach, and those were very well attended. And again, prior to sending this draft proposal to you from concept team, we incorporated and posed those questions that were posed to us to you. Also, Mary and occasionally I attend the Freedom District Community Association meetings. Many of their meetings have had this as a topic of discussion, where we have talked about cluster, we have talked about accessory dwellings, we've talked about the bulk requirements, we've talked about the changes in the district, we've talked about specific properties that these would apply to. So there have been numerous of those. As well as I've been asked, as well as Mary, to attend the Maryland Building Industry Association meetings to talk about the residential text, what the changes are, and where we are in the process. So even though it's not been the smoothest with COVID and in-person and not having meetings to really have that robust public engagement, we have done our best. And I think we've done it as well as we can, getting out the information to the public and getting comments back. And that's evident by the comments you all have received to date as well. So what I'm proposing is to finish this prior to forwarding it to the Board of County Commissioners, is that as we did with the commercial, industrial, employment campus districts, we create a comment box on carrollrezoning.org under the residential text portion, that we create a speaker sign-in portal for having a public comment session at the end of June, and that we post all of the comments that we've received to date on the website, and we will be formally presenting those to you as well. You've been sent them throughout the course of this. As a matter of fact, you received 2 additional comments today. One was a petition from the Freedom District Community Association, where they had about 460 people sign on to a change.org petition. I will make note though, that around 95 or so of the petitioners were not from Carroll County, and about 64 were not Freedom residents. Not that it's relevant, just wanted to make you all aware that I did review the petition and just thought that was of interest and of note. So about 35% was not people in the Freedom area, but there were a lot. It's not just directed to the Freedom area. This proposal is a countywide proposal, but I just wanted to make you all aware of that. As well as you received a letter from the Maryland Building Industry Association as well. So the petition was not for the changes that are being proposed in the draft that you all have in front of you from the FDCA, and then the Maryland Building Industry Association took the opposite stance and was for the changes that are being proposed. So we will post all of this for everyone to see, as we do with all of our public comments throughout this whole process on our website. And then what I'd like to propose is actually having a public outreach meeting. And we did do this with the Commercial Industrial Employment Campus, where we had a two-way dialogue with the community. We had various meetings where we had that dialogue to answer questions, get feedback. So we would do something similar to that, but again, in a virtual world. So what I'd like to do is have the public comment portal on the website available from June 1st to the 30th. June is a 5 Wednesday month, so lucky for you, we have that additional Wednesday to actually have a public outreach meeting where it would just be dedicated to speakers that wish to have additional comments on this topic during a 6 to 9 p.m. time frame. So where we are now is we've completed all the draft text revisions. We're almost done presenting it to you. And then after this whole wrap up, we'd like to try to forward this if it's where we need to be. So I'm anticipating maybe July 7th to forward this to the Board of County Commissioners and then work with them on work sessions and public hearing and co-adoption sometime this summer. So with that, any questions? Do you feel that this is a good plan moving forward to continue to solicit feedback and comment on what we're working on?
I think so. I mean, we've been getting quite a bit of public comment coming in, it seems. So I don't know if anybody else has any ideas, any concerns that maybe we're not meeting public. So.
All right, well then with that, we will plan on June 30th having just a public comment meeting. It'll be virtual again, and we'll do the sign up and call speakers in order of which they're received through our sign up portal. And we'll do it as we did with the Commercial Industrial Employment Campus, take them in an orderly manner, the comments.
Linda, I'm curious, what would you think about flipping? Are we going to have we've got a 5-week month in June. Is that what you said?
We have a 5 Wednesday month.
5 Wednesday month. Okay. Yeah, thanks. What would you think about moving that public comment meeting forward 1 week away from that July 4th week? Do you think that helps you at all?
I was trying to keep with already scheduled planning commission meeting dates that people already had on their calendar. I can pose the question for June 23rd. I was hoping to have the comment ability for a month, but if the planning commission wants to move it up a week, now I will say we have a planning commission meeting on the 22nd. We moved back the planning commission from Tuesday the 15th to Tuesday the 22nd, so that's your regularly scheduled business meeting. So I mean, that would be at your discretion whether you want to do that. And I'd have to check with staff to see if there's any conflicts.
Yeah, I guess I'm just concerned that we're going to get some blowback from people that say, hey, nice of you guys to give us a public comment period the week of July 4th. You know, we don't want that, right? I mean, I wouldn't think, but again, I'll defer to the group as to what's best.
The July 4th is that Sunday. So I mean, either week, the 7th, is the following Wednesday, so I wouldn't want to do it then either. So I'll leave it up to you. You don't have to decide now. I would like to have a decision soon, only because I need to get the advertisement out and make sure that we have appropriate notification for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, I remember we had a discussion about potentially canceling that meeting because of the July 4th. And there was a little bit consternation there to keep it. Okay, so yeah, think about that. So
Maybe
I
we
do.
can make the decision at our next planning commission meeting, when we also with more attendance. That would be really helpful. Well, on the 18th.
Okay. So I'll move on. Our next on our agenda is public comment. We do have a couple callers on the line.
Yeah, my name is Wayne Schuster. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thanks so much for the time. I am a founding trustee of the Freedom District Citizens Association. I wanted to commend and thank all the efforts to do the case studies on the changes for the cluster. I did kind of make a notation in my head, and I don't know the answer, but it would seem that there's a possibility that the outcome on some of the properties that are down here in Freedom that are undeveloped, that are larger than the Wolf property, that perhaps don't have a lot of the topographic concerns, we may be forcing them into an economics that requires the 10,000 square foot lots. And we may get a lot more lot yield than we would normally get. And that gets to the heart of what we're hearing from our membership and readership, that it's the neighborhood compatibility. So just as an example, the current Hobie Wolf plan, it's got varying lot sizes. Yes, there's a 9,000 square foot lot, but there's a lot of the lots that are, 15 and 20,000 square feet, which is a little bit more compatible with surrounding areas. And if you apply that logic to some of the other, like the Beatty property and some others that are large 100-acre properties, it could be that the lot sizes would be more in line with adjacent communities. If you go to just simply gross acreage and just give them that lot yield and then do the math, I really think that you're going to find that they're just going to go to the 10,000 square foot lots, period. And that gets into the conflict that that we're hearing from our neighbors. So I wanted to just bring that up as you start deliberating on that. I think Mr. Lester's open space comments are applicable as well. There's a lot of these developments that we require larger open space, but it becomes not usable and it becomes a homeowner association burden. So thanks very much for your time, and thanks again to staff for doing the research.
Thank you. Do we have another public comment?
Caller, you're unmuted.
This is John McGuire. Can you hear me?
Yes, John, go ahead.
I'm sorry. In light of what I heard about the public outreach, I really don't have any additional comments. We are still interested in the retirement village. Just generally speaking, we think that, these residents are our parents, our grandparents. They deserve to be located in a quiet setting, which would be in the R20 district, in a situation that's designed for their needs. And at this point, the text eliminates multifamily buildings. So we're not talking about large buildings. We're talking about smaller living units, which we think is appropriate. The other point item that I just wanted to raise. That I think, as I'm reading the 2014 county master plan as amended in 2019, in the medium density residential permits up to 4 units per acre. And I think that our code is citing the 3.5 units per acre, which I believe is cited in the Freedom comprehensive plan. But of course, this text that we're talking about is a countywide text, so maybe that ought to be looked at. Madam Chairman, thanks for the time.
Thank you. It looks like we've had a couple more callers call in. Callers, you've been unmuted if you want to go ahead and give a public comment at this time.
I hope I'm on. I can't really tell. So
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you give your name, please?
Oh, okay. This is Robin Warren. I'm a resident of the Freedom area, and I just wanted to make a couple of comments to what I heard today. One thing is that I want to point out that Linda's comment about people's choice, they wouldn't buy it if they didn't like it, that's kind of not quite right, because that's the only thing that's being built. So anyone that wants to move into an area, they don't have the choice of buying a house that in a conventional plan, because none of the areas that are being developed with a conventional plan. They're all being developed with cluster plans. So, and also no one likes HOAs. The more that land HOAs have, the more the homeowners association fees are. So I'm just throwing that out, that it's not really people's choice, because we aren't giving them a choice. The second thing that I just don't quite understand is with the Hobie Wolf example. So when the staff member did her example, she actually used the conventional plan to identify the areas that were environmental. And so without that conventional plan, how would she know how much area needed to be extracted and removed from the calculus? So that's a piece that I don't quite understand how that would work, because that's the whole point of why we want the conventional plan to stay in there, is that we would know what the environmental sensitive areas are and how much acreage they would have to remove from the calculus. So I just throw that out there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other callers? You've been unmuted if you would like to make a comment at this time.
Hi, this is Katie Garrity. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi. So I'm in the Freedom area, and I'm member trustee of the FDCA, but also I'm calling as a citizen at this point, not as the FDCA. Just in watching the meeting tonight, a big comment that bothers me is that people aren't going to buy it if they don't like it. Well, we're not concerned about the people buying it. We're concerned about the residents that live here, and those people that it's the area that it's affecting, for those of us that have already bought in an area that we like. I know that growth happens and that's all fine, but the other thing you need to keep in mind when you're looking at these proposed zoning codes and comparing them to properties is these properties are also asking for their zoning to change. They're going from R40 to R20. As they haven't even been changed yet. So we keep hearing, well, this is better than the old code, but we're not sticking with the old zoning. So as these property densities are increasing, the codes need to be better. They need to be tighter. We need to know what we're getting. I don't really see the harm in leaving if the area were developed in conformance with its topographic characteristics and the normal minimum lot size requirements in. Like, just leave that in. That doesn't seem like a big deal. That's basically the gist of it for me. I appreciate you guys working these nights and putting all the effort into it and taking our calls. So, thank you.
Thank you. And that looks like, I think all the other callers that have called in at this time. So with that, I'll note that our next meeting is a business meeting. So it's Tuesday, May 18th at 9 a.m. I'm just, sorry, I'm thinking a lot. All right. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn, and I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thank you.